You most definitely don't want to get stuck in traffic such as this one with a bad cooling system. um, Today we're gonna go to a water pump exchange on a VQ35 engine pre-2007, because those engines have like a small window for a water pump exchange. Same applies to V35 Skylines, G35s, Z33, 350Zs, and all similar cars. Water pumps can be really tricky on those cars because they are chain driven, and sometimes the problem can be a little hard to pinpoint. Those pumps are supposed to be lifetime, but of course we all know that's not the case. So let's go through exchange. So first thing you want to do is you want to lift your car in any way you can, and you want to remove your underside cover, remove all the bolts and everything for easier access. After that you want to drain your coolant on the radiator. You can do it all on the block, but I suggest first doing it on the radiator. Okay, so start by popping up your hood and removing the top cover and all the stuff that's in your way. This is already removed on my car. And the most important thing would be to set the number one piston into top dead center. This is a little tricky to do. You can either remove your number one spark plug, but you have to remove your intake manifold, or you can remove your valve cover, which is even more work. Because when you're doing it by the crank, you can be either on the top dead center or you can be 180 degrees off, you know. So this is a little tricky. I used feeling, but it takes experience and time. So I've set my engine to top dead center simply by feeling the compression, but it's a gamble, it's a roulette. I wouldn't recommend this way unless you know what you're looking for. Anyway, after you set your engine to top dead center, you may wanna undo this bolt and drain the coolant from the block. The bolt is not really hard accessible, but it's hard to see, so be careful. It's also really easy to strip it because it's an aluminium block. Some people say you don't need to drain it here. I would recommend, because you don't want to mix your oil and coolant. So now you have to remove the pump, which is held by two O-rings inside. Removing it by hands would be pretty much impossible. Luckily it has M8 threads in holes where you removed the mounting screws. So you gotta insert longer M8 bolts, which will then push the pump out. If you don't have any proper M8 bolts handy, you can do what I did, and you can use your bolts for a hood hinge for the hood lock. Just borrow them. They will fit perfectly, and you need to screw them in these mounting holes and start pushing the pump out. This is the hole I'm talking about. So be really careful and do it simultaneously, little by little. Don't tighten one side too much or another. Just be really careful. Also be super careful not to drop your bolts into block. Looks like the chain is off the sprocket. I'll just give it a little bit, couple more degrees on the crank, just a little bit. Be careful, guys, this is the trickiest part of the process. This is the most dangerous part of the process. This is when you can skip your chain. Be super careful. And the pump is out. Bearings are completely blown, but I will show you that in a bit. Clean this area completely and then install new pump. This is the new pump. It's a Hitachi unit. Apparently these were OEM, like first install on these engines, either a Hitachi or Asahi. I would definitely recommend getting some really high quality OEM grade pump. This cost me like $100 here in Japan. Sweet. New pump installed. So as I mentioned before, this is my trick to kinda lock the bolts in socket. The point where 99% of chains skip is on the first startup after pump install. That's because the tensioner doesn't have oil inside. Some people recommend cranking the engine without starting it, like removing a fuel pump fuse and just cranking it. I didn't do that. I compressed completely my chain tensioner, so on the first start it was pretty loud. Alright, here is the old pump. You can see how it failed. Let me just so you can see here how pump has failed. It's completely screwed. So this is what was making the clunking noise. Of course it would amplify in the engine through all the metal parts, and it was pretty loud. It was really loud actually. The noise was really weird. Here the bearings are screwed. So the noise was really weird because it was not related to RPMs. It was kind of random. It would just start like, it almost sounded like something was scraping under the car, like you would you know that underside cover, like you were scraping randomly with it, like, and then like it would just go like occasionally, like not RPM related. So the noise was really actually hard to diagnose. When I removed the cover, the pump was tightened with a chain, of course, but the slack was so big that I for a second doubted that it's maybe normal. Maybe it has like some sort of slack that would take the chain's tension away, you know, like because it's a chain driven pump. So anyway, this is the slack. As you can see, it's pretty much blown up. So there you have it. I did about 2,500 kilometers after the pump exchange. The car is running great.
it's the job is usually pretty expensive. It would cost you like $1,500 to exchange it in a dealership or somewhere. Price is pretty much the same here, or even more expensive, like 150,000 yen. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing it yourself if you know how to.